important to have that done. But we will move on to some storylines coming out of the All-Star game and heading into the second half of the season. Firstly, Blake Griffin. We mentioned that he was bought out by the Pistons, and he has decided to sign with the Brooklyn Nets for the rest of the season. If you had told me even like 4 years ago that a team was going to have Harden, Kyrie, KD, and Blake Griffin on it, you would say, I don't know, is that like the All-Star team? Is that uh, Warriors 2.0? But yeah, but more like iso ball Warriors rather than movement Warriors. The difference is now that Blake Griffin is very much grounded after the 100 surgeries he's had and the stuff he's had to go through. Um, the Nets already have like a Jeff Green and a Bruce Brown that they run at center, which provide a lot of what Blake will give them, which is like the playmaking, a little bit of outside shooting. So the only thing I can really see here is if they expect Blake to actually have been conserving himself and waiting to get bought out / traded, and now he is going to turn it up a little bit athletically, but there's been no signs of it. So it's really, I don't know, it's a little bit interesting. And I would say, what is the word that I'm looking for here? I just question why he chose to sign with Brooklyn. I guess he's ring chasing, right? That would be the obvious thing. But I think he could have gone to a team that needed him a little bit more for what he provides, because it seems like Brooklyn already has that. And so I don't know how many minutes he's going to get playing for this team.
What do you think defensively he does, if anything, or defense
He's
is
going
the
to,
same as those players you mentioned?
yeah, like I don't think he gives you anything more than Jeff Green or Bruce Brown. Maybe a little bit more size than either of those guys that you could put on like one of those more, I don't know, one of those bigs, because they really have no one to guard Joel Embiid, like not even DeAndre Jordan. But maybe if a team goes small and you need Blake to be in there to guard the other team's smaller five, they have the guys who fit that role, so it didn't really make sense for me.
Yeah, I guess one more weapon in the holster for come playoff time. I have watching the Raptors when you don't have a number one center, just keep the rotation going, and that you see like Baines and Boucher do their best coming in small minutes or like against the other team starter off the bench without the expectations. So I do think there's something to be said for just having multiple guys to rotate through the position if you don't have that number one guy in the position. The more the merrier then.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Raptors, the next storyline we got on tap is Kyle Lowry over the weekend sold his home in Toronto, which does not bode well for where he's expected to be by the end of the season. You can partially think that that's just because the Raptors are in Tampa, and so at the end of the season he is a free agent. So either way, if he's not traded, it seems like he may be signing somewhere else. Um, it's a little bit upsetting to see this story come through, because obviously we love Kyle here, and he'll probably have a statue and lots of people uh, lobbying the committee to get him into the Hall of Fame. Probably the greatest Raptor of all time, just legacy wise and full career wise, and what he really has meant to this team, and finally bringing a championship to Toronto. Um, the very cold analytical side of me hopes he gets traded and does not walk in free agency, because you do want to get some assets in return, especially if it's going to a team like a Philadelphia or a Denver, or a Los Angeles Clippers. They do have a couple things that I would want, like maybe we get Bull back in a trade or a little bit draft capital. Philadelphia, I would love to get Matisse Thybulle from them in exchange for Lowry, because Thibault is like a defensive. He's kind of, I don't know. It's hard to really find a comparison, but it's like, I don't know, Luka Doncic, right? He's just naturally gifted at being an offensive superstar. Thibault has the gifts to be like a natural defensive superstar and just be like this absurd, out of this world instinct guy who can guard anyone. So it'd be really fun to have him on a Raptors system where they already play great defense. And I think Nick Nurse could turn him into something really special. So I have my hopes up about fun assets that we could get, but for now, like we love Lowry, we're going to support Lowry, whatever his decision may be. But it does seem like if he's not moving on in the midst of the season, he will be gone in the off season. And so at that time, we will look back on the great career with the Raptors that Lowry has had.
Yeah, I guess Raptor career obit pending potentially. I will. The Toronto housing market is, I believe, very high at this moment, with some people predicting a bubble crash. So we'll know when we know, but it could be as simple as Kyle is not living in Toronto right now. He is probably just trying to get the most value he ever can get out of his Toronto property. If he wanted to return to Toronto, it would obviously be for a very short term contract at this point in his career, so renting would be an option. But most guys just, they seem to want to have a fresh start in their final crack and give themselves the best chance they can to win. I mean, we just saw that with Brady. I guess that would be probably the most similar comparison in terms of spending all your career in one place and then just rolling the dice with something else towards the end. I get it. Really, if you want the trade or the free agency walk, really, I guess, boils down to what your playoff hopes and expectations for the Raptors are. So yours are evidently pretty low and small.
Yeah, just for me personally, like I understand the value of winning, but especially this season because it's so like abstract and so not the norm for what the Raptors are. They're playing in Tampa Bay. Like this is like a throwaway season. In a normal season, I'd say yes, going to the playoffs is something to build upon, but for sure they're not making it past the second round. Just what this team is right now, the ceiling is not greater than the second round team. So why go there and why continue to have these people away from their homes, away from their families? Why not get value and come back fresh in Toronto next season, ready to go? Uh, and just have, because you already have this squad that you're willing to build upon. So then why not? Again, cold analytical side says bring in some new assets, some more pieces that you can build with, maybe a draft pick or two, and go from there. Because I think the value of making the playoffs this year for the Raptors is just diminished as opposed to previous years.
For sure, but I don't think this team is at a place where you can overlook the importance of contributing to team culture with consecutive playoff appearances, because I don't think the Raptors have become one of those like mainstay staple, they're going to be a contender teams that, like, I think this franchise has the potential to reach like the Celtics and Lakers level with all of the love that they can get when they continuously win. So I think having like more playoff appearances and like being a playoff threat just helps build that culture that allows them to have the seasons they're kind of having right now and had last year, where even without like a superstar, just it's a locker room that finds a way to get it done. I worry that there's something in the momentum of that, and that if it halts, it might be harder to get back than you might think. And also with especially Siakam, I want all the playoff experience
Yeah.
he can get under his belt and in his resume. So I want him to have that second round appearance, and maybe this isn't the year he gets it done in the second round, but come later years, hopefully all that contributes to him eventually putting it together. I don't disagree with you. I think for sure there's something to be said for what you're saying. I'd love the idea of like a Thibault and Anunoby pairing and just like double teaming and like those lanky arms just catching everything. But to make the opposing argument for why the Raptors should be banking still on making a playoff run.
I guess the key piece that is missing here is like I think they can make the playoffs without Kyle,
Yeah.
and whatever they bring in could actually contribute. And they might actually, because they've been very successful in the last two seasons without Kyle in the lineup. So maybe they do have enough without Kyle to still make the playoffs and compete. Obviously, Kyle puts them a level above with some of the ancillary stuff that he does and the attitude that he brings, right? The leadership. But Fred has more than proven this season that he can take over that workload. And so, again, cold analytical side says that maybe if we do get a Thibault back or whatever, another asset, because if he goes to like a Denver, we would have to get a Gary Harris back to match salaries. And Gary Harris is a productive player. He's not a great player by any means, but he's a productive player. And that could actually still keep the Raptors in playoff contention, but also getting that value in return. So just it'll happen when it happens, but interesting to see going forward what the move will be. Okay. The last bit of basketball stuff to mention is the G League playoff bracket starts today with the Raptors 905 being the 1 seed.
Wow.
And they will play G League Ignite. So really, really fun, exciting game. That's at 3:45 today, Eastern time. So if anyone wants to catch that near the end of your workday, and then there will be a couple other games going on, but that's the key one, of course, for us as Toronto fans, and will be interesting to follow. I'll try and flip on the second half of that game after my workday is over. And yeah, that's it for basketball. I do want to